I'm not going to make decisions based on a popular opinion. I'm gonna make them based on the facts that I have available and what is best for the town of Orangeville. And an example of it would be, I don't wear it like a badge of honor, but I am still confident in my decision, and that is, I did not vote to go to OPP. The vote was 6-1. Well, who wants to be on the end of a 6-1 vote?
No.
I can tell you not many human beings would want that, and I certainly didn't want it either. But that's the reality of what happened, and I lost that vote, and that's absolutely fine. But then the net of it is I'm at peace with my decision, and I still think I was right, and time will determine that as we go.
Yeah. Well, do you mind just letting us know like how the transition, how's that gone so far? I mean, if you don't mind us mind me asking.
Yeah, I'm chair of the Police Services Board,
Yeah. Sorry, I
and
should have mentioned that.
candidly, absolutely honored to have that role. I'm thrilled that my fellow councillors trust me with that, and I can tell you I've run with it. Like it's if those that are watching this video today trust that the people on the Police Services Board are working very hard to ensure that the interests of all Orangevillians are looked after. And I think the realization for me, the wake-up call for me is the council piece is a fair bit of work, but the Orangeville Police Services Board, it's a ton of work. We're consistently behind the scenes working on behalf of the town to put things through. And when you tack on a transition to that, so moving from OPS to OPP, I spent days, had to book holidays from work with arbitration with OPS and contract negotiations, different legal things that would occur behind the scenes that are confidential, and you can imagine what those would be. So if there was a disturbance and the individual didn't think that they were guilty of the disturbance, then there's legal ramifications for that. Well, the Police Services Board would deal with that. And, you can't talk about specific incidents because they're confidential, but, there's items like that are continuing on a regular basis. And what I've realized is it requires depth of thought. So frequently it'll be myself on the phone with a lawyer or lawyers, and then we would report back to the PSB on how we've done. And that takes time.
Yeah.
So anyway, if I could be honest, I did not think it was that much time. The good thing for me is I think that, everybody has a skill set. Josh, you have a skill set. What I found is the skills that I have, they're transferable, and I've been able to take what I am good at, bring it over to the Police Services Board, and then I've had to learn a whole bunch of things. So my exposure to the law has never been so acute as it is now. So it's been interesting for sure, but fascinating, and I would hold my head high. I think myself and the other 4 members of the Orangeville Police Services Board have done some wonderful things.
That's great, because I mean, it definitely isn't an easy job, especially when you have to live in this, even as a counselor, but as part of that board, you have to live in this community with everybody.
I think the most trying thing for me with the Police Services Board, and it's also a criticism that people would have of the Police Services Board, and that is this confidentiality piece, right?
Yeah.
So lots of times people think that you can have transparency to events, and you can once they're complete. But prior to that, Josh, if you had something going on, or you were accused of something, far be it from me to speak of it until you were proven innocent or guilty. Otherwise, I'm just, I'm inhibiting the process with my personal commentary. So it's difficult to keep quiet. But at the same time, it's just so important to it, and I know that frustrates folks. But we're sworn by it. We made a commitment, and it's an act that's within the Police Services Board Act for the province of Ontario, and I'm committed to following that. So, it's been difficult, but I'm doing it, I guess would be the result there.
Well, I can understand why people would be frustrated, but I think many can understand why it's needed and the benefits of it. And again, how difficult it is for any of us to actually live by it. So again, thank you for what you're doing. Cause I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah. Thanks, Josh.
It's difficult. So actually, speaking of the Police Services Board, from what I understand, there is a bit of there's talks of moving towards a more regional Police Services Board. Am I correct in that understanding, or no?
There has been talks of that.
Yeah.
Those decisions, if there was a smaller Police Services Board, it would be made. It would have, as it relates to Orangeville and Dufferin County.
Yeah.
It would have to be made by the province and mandated by the province.
Yeah.
And we have been, asked, hey, would we be interested in participating in events with other police services boards in Dufferin County? And we would, for sure. We haven't done that en masse yet. Candidly, we're still transitioning. I know we've had OPP here for a few months, but there's still a bunch of OPS stuff that we're working on.
100%.
And the concern for me is and here's the controversial statement of the hour. In Dufferin County, there would be no place like Orangeville within Dufferin County. We are a town of 30 some odd thousand people.
Yep.
With unique items that need to be looked at and resolved on a regular basis, whereas the vast majority of the rest of the county is rural.
Yep.
So, personally, as the chair, I think we're quite different. And, I would prefer that we continue to have the Orangeville Police Services Board and not the Dufferin, and exclusively a Dufferin Police Services Board. If we all wanted to work together on certain initiatives, I think that makes a lot of sense. But maintaining our autonomy would be my position.
Yeah, I think many could see the benefits of that, especially as Orangeville is growing. I mean, Shelburne's going to be growing as well.
Yeah.
I think many people would find it hard to make sense of combining those two things, especially with the rest of rural municipalities, even Grand Valley.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I live in Grand Valley, and I know we're far from becoming Shelburne or an Orangeville.
Yeah. Now, Grand Valley's got lots of expansion coming up. The county itself is growing.
Yeah.
Grand Valley's growing, Shelburne's growing, and Orangeville is definitely growing. So It's interesting times.
Definitely. It's great to see. I mean, it's definitely, especially with everything that's happened last year, there's still growth on the horizon. I mean, I've even seen a retirement hub a retirement village proposed just outside of Grand Valley, which is a pretty interesting concept. I mean, we'll see what happens, but I mean, there's stuff on the way, so it'll be cool.
Well, candidly, that sounds great to me. One of our issues is in Orangeville, unfortunately, it's very expensive now to live here, and we can all blame the politicians for the taxes, and, a certain level, but it's also, we're prohibited with our residential real estate fees too.
Yep.
So, prices is what I mean, right? It's difficult for people to get into the market here, and it's difficult for people to stay. So if you're under 30 or, for a random number over 65 on a limited retirement income, it's an expensive town to live in now. So if there was something just outside of Orangeville, which you're talking about, I think that would be beneficial to all. It's a huge problem.
100%. I mean, I volunteer with Telecheck, and there's quite a few we still contact that have moved out of the area, who feel quite alone because they've had to move, and they feel a little lonely because they've left all their friends in Orangeville because they can't afford to live here anymore. And I mean,
I think that's the spot on comment, Josh, is that, who would want to leave once you're established in an area and you like your neighbors, you have your friends, and then you have to move away from them because you retire. Nobody would want to do that. No, not at all. Especially again, when you're moving to areas that are more rural, that don't have the transportation solutions that Orangeville does. And I mean,
there's, or you don't have the family close by to drive you to the appointments and things like that, or the established connections. I mean, it's just, it's a huge problem. I mean, thankfully there are people looking at it, but I mean, it's, affordability is definitely a concern for everybody.
Yeah, well, I can predict it for you now. We're talking here in January of 2021. You know, a year and a half from now, there will be an election, and the major issue in the election is going to be